Hi guys, welcome back. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the benefit system because obviously it's in the news at the moment. Not just the winter fuel payments, but lots of other things about what could happen to the benefit system under the new Labour government and stuff like that. And I just thought that I would put my views across, and hopefully I'll get some comments down in the comment section from you guys telling me what you think, and also your experiences. If you've been through the benefit system, what your experiences have been like. I'd really like to hear some of your feedback on that. So basically, you know, the benefit system is never going to be 100% fine. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be good and bad things associated with it, because that's just how it is. You know, we live in a society where there are some people who are trying to cheat the system, and there are some people who really need the system but don't get it. It just happens. That's the way it is. It can be made better, and I think should be made better. And you know, I completely agree with the fact that we need to cut fraud, because you know, fraud, you know, waste a huge amount of money by the government every year, support, you know, giving money to people who don't need it. I think it's very important that we tackle fraud, not just in the benefit system but across the spectrum. I think that's very important. But what I also believe is that that has to be across the board. So yeah, okay, target fraud within the benefit system, but also target fraud in the government, target fraud in business, you know, target fraud across the board, because that's going to save a huge amount of money. And one of the reasons why I think that we need to have a new benefit system, or a restyled benefit system, is because of two reasons. One, because of fraud. We need to protect people, protect the government, protect that, you know, the public spending. The second reason is because whenever there's a new government comes in, or whenever, you know, things like the budget come around, one of the things they always go at is the benefit system. They always say, we're going to try and get more people back into work, we're going to try and reduce the welfare bill, we're going to try and do this, try and do that. And I completely understand why they want to do that. However, by doing that, what they're doing is they are painting everyone with the same brush. They're saying that you know, that everyone who's on the benefit system should go back to work. Now, I'm not saying that there are people out there who probably want to go back to work. For, you know, if they were given help and advice, and if they were given the right ways to get into it, then they probably would go back to work. But there are lots of people out there who can't. And the problem I have is that everyone is treated the same way. Everyone is treated with, you know, all they do is they make the process harder. That's what they do. That's all they do. They just make the process harder. With every situation that comes out, they like, let's add 50 more questions to the questionnaire, or let's add 50 more tests to the assessment, or let's make it so that, you know, 90% of cases are refused and have to go to appeal. Let's overload the appeal system to such an extent that it takes years sometimes to get an appeal heard. You know, let's give people who are genuinely ill, genuinely disabled, more stress. That's what it does. Now, I don't know the answer myself. I don't know what the answer is. I think they should be more reliant. They should be reliant a lot more on doctors and specialists to find out what the situation is, because, you know, doctors and specialists are the ones that, you know, if you have evidence that you are disabled, if there is evidence there that suggests you are disabled, then I think that needs to be looked at. Sometimes assessing someone across a room for half an hour isn't going to do it. Asking them a bunch of questions about their life and what they can and can't do isn't necessarily a good way of assessing somebody's needs. And I think that it needs to be looked at in a very different way. I have an example of someone that I know who was diagnosed with MS and was, you know, physically having problems, and you could see they were physically having problems. Went to an assessment, fell over in the corridor because they could barely walk. Went into the assessment and were refused, point blank. In their decision, they were refused. Later on, it was all sorted out. That an actual former paramedic went round to see them at their house, and knew straight away what the problems that they had. Didn't need to see any other evidence. They could tell just by looking at them what the problem was. Now, I'm not saying that that should necessarily be the case for everybody, but I think there are lots of cases out there where people have a huge amount of evidence that they have a long-standing illness or disability, and it's just arbitrarily rejected or glossed over. And it's only on appeal. I mean, something I read somewhere, this was a while ago, that something like 70% of cases are overturned on appeal. Now that suggests to me that that's not just, you know, one or two isolated cases that just get missed. That suggests to me that there is a more of a hard line taken by the people who are assessing these things, perhaps going too far with their assessment in the wrong direction. So, you know, I don't know whether they have quotas. If there's anyone on here that former assessors, let me know what you think. Do they have quotas? Do they have a certain number? I mean, I'm just picking this out of the air. They probably don't, but let me know if they do. I just think that when they go along this process, when they go along the path of how do we reform the welfare system, all they do is they make it harder for everybody. And they think that that's going to weed out those people who are just, you know, going for it because they want to go for it. They don't really need it. But the problem is, yes, it might put off a few of those people, but what it also does is it adds a huge amount of stress, huge amount of uncertainty and worry to the people who actually do need it, because those people then have to go through another assessment, and they get even more questions asked, and they get a longer form. And I just think there's got to be a middle ground. There's got to be an area whereby you can tackle fraud, you can get people back into work who perhaps can't for a short period of time work but can eventually work, and those people who have long-term problems that can't work. I think there's got to be a simpler situation. There's got to be a simpler process than the one they have at the moment, because it just makes things 10 times worse. And there's got to be a happy balance struck. If you know, or you think you know, of a way to make this balance better, do let me know down in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And also don't forget to subscribe, because I really like to hear, I'd like these videos to go further and to reach more people, and subscribing and clicking the bell and liking, all that kind of stuff does all of that. So I hope that you can do that as well. And I've probably not done that in a very concise way, but that's just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are down in the comment section.